You know that feeling, right? When you just say, oh, I need a good cry. It feels like this deep, fundamental truth that letting the tears flow is a release valve for all the pressure building up inside. But what if I told you that when scientists try to prove that in a lab, they actually have a really hard time doing it? Yeah. So let's get into the surprising science behind a good cry.
And this right here is the central puzzle we're going to unpack. We feel like crying is this amazing cathartic thing, but when researchers bring people into a lab and have them watch a sad movie to get them to cry, those people often report feeling worse right afterward. So what is going on here? Why is there such a massive gap between our lived experience and the cold, hard data?
Well, this exact problem has a name. Researchers call it the crying paradox. And it's this really fascinating clash between what we believe in our hearts and what science can actually measure in the moment. So the evidence basically splits into two different camps. On one side, you have retrospective studies. That's when researchers ask you to remember the last time you cried. And almost everyone says, yeah, I felt a lot better afterward. But then, on the other side, you have the lab studies, where your mood is measured right then and there. And those often show the opposite result. This kind of suggests one of two things. Either our memory is a little fuzzy, or the sterile lab environment is missing a huge piece of the puzzle. This all leads us to the big question, doesn't it? Is our intuition about needing a good cry just wrong? Or are the scientific studies just not seeing the whole picture? Well, the answer, as it turns out, is a little bit of both. To really solve this paradox, we have to understand that crying isn't just one simple thing. It actually has two very distinct and very important jobs to do. Okay, here's a really simple way to think about it. Imagine your tears are both a signal flare that you send up for other people to see and a reset button that you press just for yourself. So let's break that down. Social soothing is the signal flare. It's all about what happens between people. It's an inter-individual thing. You cry, and it signals to others that you need support. Then there's self-soothing. That's the reset button. It's what happens completely inside of you, an intra-individual biological process that helps you calm yourself down.
And that signal flare, man, it is incredibly powerful. When you see someone cry, it's this potent, nonverbal cue that just cuts through everything. It triggers empathy in others, it can de-escalate a tense situation, and ultimately, it strengthens our social bonds. That's a huge survival advantage, right?
And then you've got the reset button. Now, this is what most of us think of when we talk about a good cry. It's that direct internal process that can literally relieve pain, flush out stress hormones, and in the end, improve our mood and even help us get a good night's sleep.
So how in the world does that reset button actually work? Let's take a peek under the hood and look at the biology of relief.
The whole secret lies in a part of your nervous system you probably don't think about very much, the parasympathetic nervous system, or PNS for short. The PNS is basically your body's brake pedal. You've heard of fight or flight, right? Well, that's the sympathetic nervous system hitting the gas. The PNS does the opposite. It's the rest and digest system that calms everything down, slows your heart rate, and helps your body recover. So here's how that biological chain reaction happens. The simple act of shedding emotional tears, that sort of deep, rhythmic breathing and sobbing, sends a signal that activates your PNS. That activation then triggers the release of some amazing chemicals, which leads to that feeling of calm and relief we get afterward.
So what are these feel-good chemicals? Well, two of the major players are oxytocin and endorphins. Oxytocin is often called the bonding hormone, and it makes us feel safe and secure. And endorphins? They're your body's very own natural painkillers. So when you cry, you're literally getting a dose of both, which explains that sense of calm, maybe even a little bit of euphoria after it's all over.
Okay, so if crying has these two amazing functions, why doesn't it always work? Why do we sometimes feel worse? Because, and this is key, the benefits of both the signal flare and the reset button depend entirely on the context.
And this, right here, is how we solve the paradox. Crying isn't a simple on-off switch for feeling better. It's a really sophisticated system, and whether it actually helps or not depends on a few really important factors.
Just think about it. Your social setting matters a ton. Crying helps if someone gives you a hug, but it totally backfires if you feel embarrassed or ashamed for doing it. Same thing for the cause of the tears. It's helpful if crying leads to some kind of resolution or understanding, but not if you're just left feeling completely helpless. And that brings us right back to those lab studies, right? Crying in a cold, sterile room with a researcher watching you, well, that's a perfect recipe for feeling worse.
But it's that third factor, your health, that gives us the final and maybe most important piece of this entire puzzle, especially when we start looking at clinical research.
A truly landmark study back in 2003 found something profound. They discovered that in people who weren't depressed, crying successfully kicked on that calming PNS response. But for people with depression, that response just didn't happen. Their bodies weren't activating the reset button. This suggests that for some people, the very biological machinery that's supposed to make crying feel good is actually impaired.
So when you put all these pieces together, a whole new picture of crying emerges. It's not a sign of weakness, it's not a loss of control, it's an incredibly advanced biological and social tool that our bodies evolved for self-regulation and for social connection. It's a complex system that, when all the conditions are right, works beautifully to help us heal.
So maybe the next time you feel those tears welling up, the real question isn't whether you're strong enough to hold them back. It's whether you're in a place, socially and emotionally, that's safe enough to let this incredible, complex system do its job, to help you heal and to help you connect.